That's the moment the Party for Socialism and Liberation says was inaudible in the critical incident video showing the police shooting that killed Adam Sykes.
Today we tell Mike Brown and the ruling class that we won't be divided. We've seen these tricks before. Immigrants are not dangerous. Capitalism is.
Welcome to Naptown People's Radio. My name is Lucas, and I am the associate producer of the show. For today's episode, we have a special segment featuring a conversation between host Derek Ford and artist, rapper, writer, and activist Leon Benson, who was exonerated after serving over 2 decades for a murder he did not commit. Their conversation centers around trauma as both a personal and a communal process, drawing from both of their personal experiences. We hope you get something from this conversation.
We are honored to be joined by a good friend of the Liberation Center, a good friend of mine, a good friend of the people, who is also a community advocate, community organizer, has been a re-entry specialist, and is an exoneree, the first person exonerated after the Marion County Conviction Integrity Unit was founded, Leon Benson. Welcome to the show, Leon.
Hey, how you doing, Derek? Hey, it's nice, if you having me here.
Yeah. Last time we saw each other was what, like December in New York City?
Man, we was in New York representing for our brother, Shaka Shakur, and the release of his phenomenal book. I was honored to be there too, man.
Yeah. The People's Forum, yeah. Yeah, people got to pick that up.
Pick that up. Great read. Along
with Letters of Gratitude, if I may say so myself, by Leon Benson. But
I appreciate the plug.
No, man. but we it's great to have you here. But we have you here under unfortunate circumstances. Last night I saw you at the Celebration of Life of Brother Kwame Shakur, and I know that he wrote a book and dedicated that book to you. So I was wondering if you could tell us about why, you made the trek from Detroit to Indy for that occasion.
Yeah, unfortunately, and, I definitely send condolences out to the Miller family, his wife. Unfortunately, around December 12th, Kwame Shakur was unalived. And, it was a shock, around the nation, in the community, but especially in the community of brothers that were incarcerated together. I encountered, Kwame Shakur. Then he was going by his regular name, Dayon Miller. We called him Day Day. And, he was a person on the inside that, we grew together. He 3 years younger than me. I mean, he had a lot of knowledge, a lot of energy, for the upliftment of people in particular. And, that's how we met. So just knowing that he transitioned like that and he was having a celebration of life, I had to stop what I was doing and, make the trek, to come down here to embrace his family and to embrace, other people that loved him as well. I seen you there too, man.
Yeah, I had to come through, man. Kwame, I remember when we met, man. Yeah, and we did a tribute to him on NPR.
Okay,
and we let him speak for himself too, to give his final, rallying cry, so we, made a commitment to continue the struggle, carry his spirit forward. And there were some other, people there too. But the, it was a mixed emotions in there, I mean, it's tragic, it's sad. It's a brother who, if he lived 50 more years, man, what could he have done? I can't help thinking about that. but also like what he did in the time that he had was incredible. You know, I mean, he could get 10, 15, 20 people around him in 2 days, you know, I mean, he just had that personality. So I guess, what was your relationship like?
My relationship with Kwame, I consider Kwame, one of my closest brothers. You know, the time that we was inside, the way he conducted himself, speaking out against the administration, protecting other prisoners from the administration. One thing that was really big with him, it was a time where he was in solitary confinement and guards was like messing with him and messing with other prisoners. And so when Kwame got off lockup, and I remember I was there, so he was braiding like a guy hair. And I didn't know this. I was just sitting talking. He was on his own mission. And I didn't know he braiding the guy hair. And then, I must have looked to the side. He done slid over there to the guards, the little guard station, and he beat up the police. And, unfortunately, they charged him with attempt murder. And he beat the case pro se.
That's what's up.
That right there, he won a lot of my respect with, beating that case and just having the determination to do it. And he beat it pro se. It was an attempt murder. And, we parted ways different times during the course of our incarceration, but he was released in 2016. He got released in 2016 and, he was getting his life together. I think it wasn't until 2020 that he really started really getting involved in advocating for victims of police brutality. He even reached out, to me through my daughter. He did some podcast interviews. He advocated for me. And then, of course, the bombshell that came, I got a book in the mail, My Search for Truth and Answers. And he dedicated, his autobiography to me. And Amos Royal is an individual who is still currently incarcerated. But hey, and he was the first, he met me at the door coming out of prison screaming truth never dies, And I really, for me, that was really like important for me. Like that really touched me in my heart. Like, and I'm a very loyal person. And, that was my brother, Sometimes, we didn't got in conflicts and stuff like that,
Your brothers.
Right, we brothers, but, at the end of the day, it's nothing, that would deter, my ultimate love and admiration for him and his work, So I'm just figuring out ways that I can keep, the great parts of his legacy alive,
Yeah, no, for sure. I respect that. And I'm no doubt that you will, including with a new project that you're launching, I believe, on February 28th called the Solitary Justice Project.
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
Well, one thing, and I can pivot from, me and Kwame being in solitary confinement. He spent a significant amount of time in solitary confinement. I think 8 years of his incarceration. Me, 12 years of my incarceration. And, one thing about solitary confinement, it's a mental wellness issue that's within, the prison industrial complex. We often call prison the belly of the beast, but I refer to solitary confinement as the womb of the beast. People are gestating in this concrete womb with the sally port being the umbilical cord where all your nutrition and everything is coming. Instead of developing in a healthy mother's womb with healthy embryonic fluids to feed this developing embryo, in solitary confinement is toxicity, it's pathology, it's loneliness, it's shame, it's so many things that's bad. irregardless of what the Quakers did to start, you know, it's a repentance. If they figured if they put somebody in a room by themselves, that they will repent.
Yeah.
So from that, I'm out. I live in Detroit, and I do a lot of advocating in the mental wellness community, reentry community, recovery community. To me, it's all one community. And, solitary confinement, I was like the only person talking about solitary confinement. And I was able to do a lot of advocate work with a gentleman by the name of Hakeem Crampton. Hakeem Crampton, he's the legal liaison for Citizens for Prison Reform in Michigan. Also the director is Lois Polano, brilliant woman. And, one of their key projects is Open My Door, M.I. Door, talking about, the solitary confinement issue. For Lois Polani, and, this is the Indiana connection. Her son was incarcerated in Indiana for a significant amount of time, and he had mental wellness challenges in the course of that. And, when he got out, she seen what solitary done to him, and she just vowed to just shut down solitary confinement units. So essentially, it's about harm reduction through policy, through technique. No one don't need to be in solitary confinement for years. I understand that people need to be separated and isolated for certain things and times, right? But it's too much. So after I connected with Hakeem Crampton, and, visited a couple events that they brought out a model solitary cell, I was like, wow. And I began to just tell, my solitary experience on my own. But, Mr. Crampton, he approached me like, man, you need to do a project about solitary confinement. You're the only voice out here. And so I got with Open My Door, and, they're my fiduciaries. And, we got it started. One of the central things of Solitary Justice Project, as I said, I'm on a center on solitary survivors as well. So people who survive solitary confinement, it is a lot of emotional damage. It's trauma on trauma, because it's something that's difficult to really communicate with people from prison who haven't experienced solitary confinement, let alone people in society. So one of the core projects that I got going on is I'm educating, this core group of 10 solitary survivors of how to properly communicate, beyond their trauma. Even me right now, when I tell you my experience, I must communicate it. So I am, in a way, performing my pain. I can't cry every time I talk. I can't be angry every time I talk. So I got to find a way to harness how I'm delivering my message, to the audience. I got to think of the people who haven't experienced, my journey, and give a good picture in bits and bytes. And we can go a little deeper. And this is what I'm trying to teach this core group, how to, promote the project through social media, how to, change policies with your voice, talk to legislators, how to have an elevator pitch. Yeah. Because sometimes the trauma, have you ever been talking to somebody that experienced the carceral experience, and you ask them a question and they just kind of go off? You'd be like, wow, that's their trauma coming out, and it's hard to really, it makes people feel uncomfortable. And I'm not telling nobody not to express yourself, but you want to be in a better environment to heal and express yourself in a way that you're not hurting,
Yeah. And the others can receive it at different levels. I mean, 10 people, that's 10 different narratives, 10 different ways of communicating. And you and I were just talking last night, and I was talking to my wife, Sarah Full, about this today, just like we were calling vicarious trauma, which is just the fact that she brought this up to me. She's like, you're working with your best friends with, people are going through some unjust, horrific, we're not supposed to swear in here. But nonsense from the state and people who have been put through that. I can't even imagine that. Right. And so it's even inside of me. I start tearing up when I think about Shaka right now. I think about that dude before I go to sleep and when I wake up, one 10-minute phone call a week to his wife. It's lucky, 23 and 1, you did 13 years. You know what I'm saying? People got to know that that's a human rights violation. You get in a fight, you and I get in a fight, separate us out, bring us back together, resolve it. You know what I'm saying? That's it though, man. And and I think that it's just people don't understand it, and they think that they're animals. They gotta be caged up, or else they're gonna, like a zoo or something like that. So I think that getting the real voices out there and meeting the real people who've gone through that's gonna be definitely impactful.
Yeah, I think you mentioned something. We know that trauma, being trauma informed. You got acute trauma. This is something that happened to you, one thing, and it can be a traumatic experience. And then, chronic trauma is trauma that happens over a duration of time. So solitary confinement is a chronic trauma that's happening. People on the inside, they don't really feel it. You don't know the effects until you walk away. And then you got complex trauma, which is multiple things happening. So imagine someone in solitary confinement. They get the call that their mother died. The guards is playing with their trays. The guy next door to them is having a mental episode and is cursing them out. So this is a deep level of trauma that people live in. And just like you said, that vicarious trauma, oftentimes when people leave from solitary confinement back into society, their trauma becomes your trauma. And just me being vulnerable, the system of Indiana, the Department of Corrections, really hurt me. It hurt me really bad. Oftentimes you hear me talk about, my strategies of strength, but you got to come into an acceptance of what really happened. And I was tortured in there, man. And this is part of some of the techniques that I'm going to teach, my solitary survivors. Right now, I'm very triggered by the situation. I got tears in my eyes because I'm thinking about those times. Now I got to reposition. I'm getting a solitary survivor to reposition and now empathize. I know it's unfair, but you must empathize with society. How do I tell this story without hurting somebody? How can we heal together? You know what I mean?
That's the question. Yeah.
Right? How do we do this? Because we can't have pain Olympics as well. We're not competing. I got more pain than you. I'm a bigger victim than you. No, we looking to heal. And so one of the biggest things that I see is valuable people, right? Because some flip sides to solitary confinement is, oh, man, I read and I created, and, you know, I did these strategies to make myself well. Well, these are valuable tools and gifts to society. But if I'm not able to process my trauma the right way, you know, I can fracture my relationships. If I'm not able to communicate what I need, I'm gonna fracture my relationships, and I'm gonna put that accountability on myself. It's a personal accountability to want to heal and to heal. And I want these advocates of real live experience, credible messengers. And unfortunately, just because somebody experienced something, it doesn't mean that they got the know-how to do certain work. You have to be, you must be healed. If you trauma informed, you must be healed. And so I'm directing that to society. And one of the things I do is the pivot with me understanding society with solitary confinement. 2020, we had COVID. So the world went into a sort of solitary confinement. The thing about the world, this happened like in the course that everybody really was locked down, like the first 3 to 6 months. And people went stir crazy. And as I sit down and I keep processing and healing my trauma so I can be more present, I realize the society that I came home to is still in recovery from the solitary confinement of COVID-19. So this is how I bridge the gap, you know, with these mental wellness communities. And of course, we do policy as well. You know, we got a mental wellness toolkits for individuals in solitary confinement. Our focus is in Michigan, but it's international. We are connected with Unlock the Box. Is a national solitary survivor movement. Of course, Solitary Watch. I work for, you know, I wrote, you know, articles for them while I was inside. Moral embodiment, you know what I mean? Because that's what's happening. To keep somebody in solitary confinement, you got to have a moral embodiment. They got to take the moral out of your brain to allow you to think that you can rehabilitate somebody with putting them in a bathroom. It's a bathroom. It's the size of a bathroom, literally, you know what I mean? And we just want to teach society about that. So that event happened in February 28th, 2026, 3 to 5 at 18405 Livernois in Detroit, Michigan. It's at the Thanadar Community Center. And, you know, this is a Detroit senator, a Michigan senator from D.C. You know, he's behind, you know, getting rid of solitary confinement. We got other constituents as well. Also, we had, you know, city officials like Roy McAllister, a big community advocate, former councilman of Detroit. That's, you know, against, you know, these methods. And we're looking for community partners. Solitary, the family, the vicarious trauma you speak about, we need your stories. If you will, Derek, I don't want to hijack your show, but I just want to ask you a question because it's important. The vicarious trauma, and I don't want to be triggering. You just see me. I decided it couldn't help but to come out. A little tear come out. Look. Now I'm overcompensating. Now I'm like, let me get back in. It's like, whoa, you didn't see me cry. But look, but you know, we cry and it's good. Let it out. You know, real men cry, black men cry, white men cry. Real women cry. Adults cry. It's part of the process. Right? Do it. You know, that lets you know that you living. I'm still a human being. You see, hey, solitary confinement did not crush my humanity because I can sit and cry about things that are bad. I'm not callous. But I want to just turn it on you, Derek. So the vicarious part for you, what are things that are triggering for you with your loved ones and comrades that are in solitary confinement?
Yeah, it's a tough question that we'll have to save for another episode. No, I'm just kidding. No, because it was just sort of pointed out to me, but when I think about, when I think about what I've heard you talk about, your solitary confinement experience, it's been almost one of triumph, overcoming. You turned it into a Shakespearean theater. You turned it into a library and everything. And I know you did that too. But then I know there's also, like, in order to do that, you got to have some level of sanity. How can you have some level of sanity locked in a bathroom for years, right? And then just thinking and hearing, day to day, new things that, like Brother Vernon, who is not allowed to see a therapist because it's it would violate.
Wait. I pour over his case. That kind of missed me. You mean to tell me that Vernon Bateman, who spent years in solitary confinement, wrongfully incarcerated, who's out on parole for a crime that he didn't commit, and he's not allowed to have a therapist?
They denied him a request to see a therapist because there could be children in the lobby, even though his alleged crime had nothing to do with children. So yeah, he can't see a therapist.
He can't have a therapist over the phone?
No, he has to get special permission to go to church. So as his friend, I'm privileged, to hear his stories, right? And when I bring him to my school, he cries, in front of the students, and he's not ashamed of it, and he says it's therapeutic for him to talk about it. And just talking about it and then thinking like, man, this is my guy. Like, I would do whatever I needed to, like I will, and do whatever for this dude. And it makes me, it's that whole, anger isn't, I'm told it's a secondary emotion. I don't know, whatever. But it makes me pissed and it makes me sad. And it just makes me like, it's heartbreaking. Like being there when he came into the Liberation Center one day and he was shaken. And one of our comrades who was going to nursing school was like, I think he had Bell's palsy. And it was from all the pressure of parole, when they're popping up. And so I spent the night at his house that night so we could get some sleep, clear my schedule. And, again, we're not playing Olympics, right? Like I'm still a free person. But like being there and just being like watching that happen to my friend, my brother, like, and then to go into the parole office where to see who these people are, they're doing it to him, and to think about Shaka. I haven't spoken on the phone to Shaka since like September. Man, we talk every day, and now we just write letters. And they took his blood work through the food slot. You know what I'm saying? Like just hearing shit like that and knowing that it's happening to people that I love, and that I look up to. And Shaka's like a mentor to me, Vernon too, but more of a friend, you know what I'm saying? You're itself, like more of like a friend, mentor, teacher. All y'all are teachers to me, and that's the most important like profession that, I think there is. And I think y'all are better teachers than I am. Not my wife though, she's an expert teacher. But yeah, that's like, I'm learning I don't know, trauma's a learning experience too, maybe. But I don't know. Does that answer the question?
I think I pivot. And the reason why I asked you this.
You pivot because I didn't give a good answer.
No. You good. But a lot of people don't know how to, heal themselves. They don't understand self-care.
Yeah.
Right? Self-care. And, in the field that I'm in, I work with a lot of peers with a lot of trauma. Whether it's from prison, domestic violence, or substance abuse, which is a problem-induced solution from trauma. You absorb this energy from people, and you got to find somewhere to put it. It don't mean you don't care. This means you really care because you're going to be more present. So, things like working out, things like debriefing sometimes. Sometimes we need to debrief from certain events. Okay, we went to a trial. What happened? How do you feel? How are you going to pivot from this? You might be like, I don't want to go to the courtroom for a while. I'm going to go relax. I'm going to get a massage. I'm going to meditate. Whatever your thing is, you can do that, and that can reduce it. But you experiencing that is just saying you're human and you care, But if it go unnoticed, it can be something that, that can get out of control, and you won't even realize that is happening, The other thing I want to talk about, because as you were telling your story, you said something, you said, this ain't Pain Olympics though. No, but it was you being able to express your pain. You can do that, right? So, and I got a paper coming out about Pain Olympics, exploring, lived experience. And I came up with three ways that people compare. For one, we live in a competitive world. So I believe in the theory of evolution, natural selection, the organism that can adapt will outlive the other ones. So this is a competition, right? Coming out. It's a competition. This is a natural competition. So if I'm going for a job, I got to compare. Am I going to get this job? If I'm a boxer, I got to compare my opponent. If I'm finna negotiate, I got to compare.
You gotta be better.
Right?
Yeah.
And this comes with a moral thing, of course. You can be, okay, I'm going to compare to do the right thing, but you still have to compare. I heard that if it cannot be measured, it cannot be improved. So you must compare. But then the more personal side to this is the egocentric comparison. And what happens is it's somebody that may have an experience that may be more coveted. It may be more intense. It may be different. And the person that's comparing in this sense from that egocentric frame, they will minimize that. It's a sort of envy. It's an envy. It's like, I can't reach that. I want that. I want to be the perfect victim in this. I want to have an airtight victim narrative. And in doing this, and I'm going to tell you, in doing this, it develops a term called violent innocence, especially for traumatic things. You know what I mean? Since I've been in the shoe I was wrongfully incarcerated, and nobody feeling like me. Nobody. You can't feel what I'm going through, Derek. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you a white dude, man. You a teacher and everything, man. You cannot relate to me. Like, And the reason why I use an example like that, because I was a self-glorified victim, but I was being victimized in the shoe. And I caught it. I'm like, oh, man. And how I caught it is the last one. The last one is how to compare in a healthy way. So now you're getting empathy and humility out of it. So for instance, I didn't grow up on a farm. So if I'm talking to you about your struggles on a farm or your triumphs of a farm, for one, I got to be humble because I haven't had that experience. So I'm listening to you. You my teacher. I haven't had that experience. And, and I must empathize. And so that's the way that I glean, goodness out of that. So while I was sitting in solitary confinement, I often used to watch different documentaries about people with different, disabilities. I'd be like, wow, man, I'd rather be in prison than to have certain disabilities or diseases. And I'm looking at it like that. I'm like, wow. But I'm not pitying. This does not bring about pity. This brings empathy. Empathy and sympathy are two different things. Right? Sympathy going too far would turn into pity. And pity can be destructive. So that last part, that's really big to really think about. And I think, I want to pivot this work in the wellness space because it has been a term out there called Pain Olympics. You would see it in a lot of AA meetings. You would see it in support groups. Man, I was in solitary for 10, but I was in there for 15. Right? Anything you can do, I can do better. Because the trauma has placed some individuals in a situation that they want to be airtight victims. And we can look at this as a collective level as well. I love Black History Month. It's Black History Month. But a lot of times, a lot of the things that's being shown, it's a reminder of the Black victimhood, right? It's like, wow, like, damn, you finna play the hanging again? Like, and then it's a cry for my pain over my triumph.
Right. Commodification
right.
of your trauma, of like the collective. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a song. It's a song from Michael Kiwanuka, great soul singer. It's a song that he got called Hero that really talks about this victimhood. Like, am I a hero because I got gunned down? Because I got sent to prison? Right. Why do I got to be a hero when these things coming up? It seemed like it's a ploy, whether consciously or unconsciously, to keep, this group of people in victimhood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? In order for you to be a hero, you got to be a victim hero. Like, what? No. What about this other stuff?
Yeah.
So I apply that to regular life, as well. So these some things that we doing over at Solitary Justice Watch and through the community,
Yeah. I appreciate that because I think that, like thinking about Black History Month, man, when I think about Black history, I think about the fact that ever since African people were forced onto this, these shores, resistance, the desire for self-determination, independence, that was born right then and there, and it hasn't stopped, and there's been a whole lot of violence and trauma along the way, we're talking, hundreds of years, right? But I think about, sometimes there's too much focus on that, right? And it's like, but it's like, what about all the victories? There's more defeats than victories, but like, we should have, we should be proud, not have pride, but be proud,
right.
of the struggles that we've overcome and endured, and if you got a struggle, you got like a personal one. It is collective because vicarious trauma is necessarily collective, right?
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point.
I can't have it unless you have it. So, you got to, to go to the AA reference, right? You got to admit that, like, not that you don't have power over it, but like, yeah, it's real. Like when Sarah said that to me, I was like, I had never thought about that at all. Literally, hadn't crossed my mind at all, And so just understand, there's a power that came with even understanding that,
Yeah.
So, so I appreciate that. And it's about, just like, I like the way that you're going about that. That's strategic. And I'm looking forward to February 28th. I'm going to try to see if we can get some folks to carpool down there for that event.
Oh man, that'd be great. Hey, we having some solitary survivors speak. We having the model cell. We're going to have, it's the launch. We have refreshments and everything. A lot of important people will be there. But Derek, something that you said that was so cool, that let's get into this collective thing, the vicarious trauma of Black struggle, right? So now this on a collective level, people outside the Black community, and we didn't seen this, whether it's the LGBTQ community, whether it's the Holocaust survivor community, whether, it's our Latino community. Sometimes we get this back and forth on Pain Olympics because of that. And that's why I feel that work is going to be very important. I'm going to have it out in the next 2 months. I'm going to have it published on Medium. And I also want to say this. One of the last things I want to say.
I've heard that before.
Right.
No,
but this time it's true, y'all. First and foremost, I love the listeners in Indianapolis and throughout the world, for real, I love Indianapolis. I talk about Indianapolis a lot in Detroit, twin cities for me, So, sometimes, I get excited, when I'm talking to the people down here. One thing I want to pivot on for me personally is we talking about lived experience. So what I did this year, and I'm going to do a panel sometime this month, a Black History panel, but the focus is on the wellness techniques of people in struggle, Black people. How did they survive that? So I don't want to go through that no more, but how did you get here? And it's a lot of great strategies of health and healing within that particular struggle. And it leads me to look beyond, the Black frame, my experience. I want to see other experiences. My experiences is not the end all be all, but they are the fruits that we lay on the table. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's so many great things, like you said, that's already there in the past. And when you think about some of our great spiritual leaders, therapists, right? You can say Jesus was a therapist, or Buddha.
And a union organizer.
And a union organizer. We ain't gonna talk about Gandhi, you know what I mean? Come on, man. Hey, he ruled, man, the country. He brought them together, in a pair of drawers, man. Come on, man. That's my guy, Gandhi, But just looking at these things, that's, we got to live and tell, like Sartre would say, getting my little philosophy bag, live and tell, tell your lived experience is just as important as anyone else's. And we should have safe spaces to express them. And, this launching pad from Solitary Justice Project, it's an element, it's a holistic thing. It's like just thought, it's this component of the bigger picture is a component of everything. The smallest piece is just as significant as a bigger piece. We need all these pieces, and we need to stop the negative comparing. This is the barrier. And that comparison comes from, we live in a market-driven society, right? Where classism happens and all these things, this is not healthy.
Divide and conquer. That's how they keep us where we are, divide and conquer.
Yeah.
And we play into that when we do that, instead of recognizing the commonality that comes about for me by when I'm standing shoulder to shoulder with somebody and I'm like, oh, wait, we have more in common with each other than, I do with my white boss or whatever, Yeah. Because
you basing it on experience.
Yeah. And the political framing, because I can go through an experience, but I got to understand that experience somehow, because I can, because I can come out two ways, millions of ways based on, so I got to have that proper political understanding, but, that's not proper. I don't want to say like politically correct, right? But I got to understand it because experience is experience, but how I understand it, that's just as crucial.
I think when you say that, the unique way I explain politics.
Yeah.
And I like telling this to the people because you're right. I'm going to tell you in my frame, Politics is self-interest. Ideology is group interest. We know from our good friend Marx. So when you think about politics, isn't it in your best interest to be healed? Right? But if you're misguided, you would be playing off in toxicity that's not your own. You would be in the social media peanut gallery. Is this really in your interest? Don't you got better things to do? Don't you? Nobody want to put hurt and harm out. So that political frame. So first and foremost, my politic is to be healed, not to hurt nobody, right? In the healing frame, just to understand that alone. This simple thing. And irregardless if we got different ideological views, that's okay.
Yeah.
You can do anything. You can be an atheist, a Gnostic. You can be religious. You can be an evolutionist. You can be a Republican, Democrat. But at the end of the day, communist, right? You must deal with the human experience. We are humans. That's what it is. So it's not about what you have. It's not about what you can do. But the biggest healing thing to understand is it's about who you are. You know, this is an existential thing, but it's all about life, you know? Man, hey, I really appreciate you having me, man. You know, I could go on all day, you know, just talking about health and healing and the things we got going on, man. And I commend you for really recognizing the vicarious trauma in yourself. Right? Because self-politic, if you're not good, how can you be good for the people?
Yeah.
Come on now, you got to be good for the people. You a community healthcare worker. The Black Panthers was community healthcare workers. They were mental health peer specialists. And when you come on the scene, you must affirm what the people going through, but you got to go home and get that stuff off of you too. Because it's trauma, man. Continue to do the great work you're doing, Derek. I know it's going to get greater, but that's big, man. And I hope, you know, other people in the community, in Indianapolis, in the community are helping and uplifting humanity, really take the courage to know their politic of self-health and healing and self-care and be open with it. Find your safe space. Talk about it and heal, you know. It's a lifelong process. It's not an event.
Yeah. 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 And that's one of the reasons why we have the center as a space for collective, you know, care, because we should care for each other too. You know, I mean, I'll say that, you know, I do want to give props because it was Sarah and actually her therapist. She was talking to her and she was like, Derek, who's his like mentor, you know? And I have mentors, but none are like, you know, right here, right now, you know, like, and so that's, I did want to just give props for that, but yeah, collective healing, and so that we can keep struggling, because if we're not right ourselves, you know, that's what burnout happens, you know, and that's when people drop out and commit harm, you know?
Yeah, so. You're right. And speaking about the center is phenomenal. Right, I don't know if you want to get this one and make it into another thing, right? But just because I'm here just with this experience, man, this is phenomenal. You know, I seen you guys when you started over there, you know, off of Meridian. This is powerful. You know, this building. You know, I believe buildings have spirits in them. I just feel a lot of gravitational pull of positivity. You know, this is one of the healing stations in the city of Indianapolis, here in, you know, the outskirts of Fountain Square. Man, it's lovely, man. I love the art. I love the books, the clothes. I see the work. I see the station to really, you know, heal the community, you know, whether it's through, you know, protests, whether it's through passing out clothes, food, or, you know, therapy sessions or, you know, yoga sessions. This is powerful, man. Hey, I really want to thank you for inviting me here. it's going to be, really make my trip back home that much easier, because it's just like, it's smooth, man. If y'all out there, y'all got to come to the Indie Liberation Center. Hey, what's the address, Derek? You got to tell them the address.
1619 Prospect Street. And it's our first storefront. So you'll see our sign, you'll see our posters, come on in, get our hours online. But, we're closed Mondays, but open every other day of the week. So yeah, come on through. Everybody's invited.
Hey, I'm telling you, they got some dope posters. I bought these posters. They so dope. And the books. So, I'm telling all my people in Detroit, anywhere, y'all got to come out to the Indie Liberation Center and really, embrace this experience of uplifting and just really being educated about the history and the struggles of the people, and to look forward to a future, a brighter future of a place that, we don't have to hate, we don't have to starve, we don't have to be angry, we can be more balanced, and we can be more of a community. Come on through Indie Liberation Center.
Well, thank you, Leon, for being here. I mean, for coming on the show. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I always leave laughing, but also thinking, and also, crying sometimes. Because it's a pleasure to talk to you. I'll leave it at that. And thank you for coming to the center to drop by to see what we've been doing, because you've been a part of it, and I'm sure that our listeners will see you, soon enough back here. And in the meantime, we'll be definitely put the information out about the Solitary Justice Project on the website. We'll link to yours, and we'll link to the events and promote it, and try to send some people out there. I want to be there myself, because it seems real important and a really good angle and a necessary added ingredient to the struggle for a world where we're liberated. And nobody has to be in isolation.
Nobody has to be in isolation, man. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah. And we'll be back with another segment on Naptown People's Radio. And we're back on Naptown People's Radio. We hope you enjoyed that segment with LB. It's always a pleasure, honor, and a fun time to talk with him. And, he's probably one of the funniest people that I know. And there's perhaps no greater organization to give a shout out to for this week's Circle City shout out than his own project, which is about to launch, the Solitary Justice Project. That will be happening February 28th. It's in Detroit, but it will be coming to Indianapolis soon enough. And is dedicated to raising awareness about the profound and often overlooked impact of solitary confinement on the mind, the body, the prison, and on our entire society, really. And this is coming from somebody who spent, a decade in solitary confinement, and actually wrote and published, eventually published a book called Letters of Gratitude, that he wrote from inside solitary confinement, and which is, quite profound. We have it. It's called Letters of Gratitude. I am, because we are published to Iskra Books in 2024. We have copies at the Indie Liberation Store. It's also available online. So, at the event, they'll talk about really the stories of survivors, firsthand accounts of the psychological toll of isolation, the long-term mental health effects, looking into current policies and needed reforms, to, align with the ultimate goal of ending solitary confinement, which is largely considered a human rights abuse. So that does it for this week's episode of Naptown People's Radio. We hope you enjoyed listening. There are plenty of ways to get involved in the struggle. Pretty much all of them align with the kinds of activities that Leon mentioned we have going on here. So Saturday, 9:30 to 11 a.m. is Circle City Sangha, a mindfulness meetup. And then throughout the rest of the day, from 12 to 9 p.m., we are having a Black and Red Books Day. So February 21st in 1848, is when the Communist Manifesto was first published. And this Saturday, this month, it also happens to coincide with the 100th anniversary of Black History Month. So we are hosting a series of events. Different groups are hosting them to, uplift revolutionary literature and recommit to the fight for the liberation of Black, New African, and all oppressed peoples. So that will include our Capital Reading Group, our collective study of Capital, which we are on session 7, reading chapters 23 and 24. But just before that, read, talk, research, revolution, come out, pick out a book from the vast collection of texts in the Black and communist traditions we have. Find posters that hit the hardest for you, the t-shirt with the message you want to rep, and meet local organizers, and also check out the Hispanic Cultural Hub exhibit on display now at the gallery, because it's quite incredible. And then, so after the collective study of Marxist Capital, from 4 to 5 p.m., we will have Words, Reconnecting Struggles for National Liberation and Socialism. So to counteract the whitewashed history of the New African struggle in this country, we'll read the words of Black revolutionaries that inspire us most. So whether it be an excerpt from Harry Haywood or Fred Hampton, Asad Shakur, a poem by Claude McKay or Langston Hughes or Shaka Shakur, or one of the 2 obituaries Du Bois wrote after Stalin's passing. If you want to bring a text, bring it. We'll have some here also. But we'll be doing the work to reconnect these struggles that the ruling class wants us to think are not only separate, but opposed to each other. And then right afterwards, we have Come and Play, a night of Black joy and community games. So, it's vital we set aside time to be in community with one another. And so we want to end the day in a more relaxed environment to strengthen community through games and interaction. And the goal is simply to bring people together. So it is a night of Black joy and community games, but it is not exclusively open to Black New African people. It's open to all people, and all people are encouraged to come, no matter their national identity. And then finally, afterwards, between 8 and 9 p.m., we have Socialize and Work Collectively, inspired by one of our latest member groups, Touchcast Indie. So, the real work of transformation is not always glorious. In fact, it rarely is, but it's foundational. So, stay after and continue socializing as we clear and clean the space from the day's activity, so it's ready for another day of struggle. And on Sunday, as usual, we have Emancipatory Emotions, or our Sunday Liberation Yoga from 6 to 8 p.m. More details are online. We hope you found today's discussion on Naptown People's Radio useful. And so if you did, pass it on, leave a comment, send some love at donate.naptownpeoplesradio.com. The road ahead is long, but we walk it together. Study with your comrades, build with your community, and always remember, theory without action is paralysis, but action without theory is chaos. So once again, I'm your host, Derek Ford. Thank you, Lucas, for filling in for Danny, and stay dangerous, stay disciplined, and stay in the struggle.
We say all power to the people. That means that we are our own liberators. We don't depend on nobody else. We depend on ourselves. We take responsibility for ourselves, and therefore we step up for our organization. Those that have proven by their actions and their practice that they represent for us. All power to the people and peace.
Collaboration. Like, we act as if there's a scarcity of rights. If gay people get rights, women can't have rights. But that's not true. A victory for one is a victory for all. A thing is the same, And
you talk about people being fearless in the face of whoever there is. They don't care. To the Liberation Center, I would say, this is what we need.